Looks very dark. Good evening and welcome to our Facebook. No, this isn't Facebook. This is YouTube, our YouTube live show.
The joys of being live, hey? You can't cover up your mistakes.
No, shall we press stuff and start again? No, we can't when we're not recording a video. So welcome. It's really, really good to have you watching us on our YouTube show, and welcome. We have a really, really, really good show for you coming up tonight. And we're going to start, as usual, by telling you a few things that we have coming up. And one of the things that we are really, really excited about is our conference. Because of all the issues that we had with our website, I know lots of people don't know about our conference, so we're having a whole big thing going out there kind of trying to get everybody to know about it. So if you are watching and you do know about our conference, please tell somebody, tell at least one person, and tell them to tell one person too, because it's going to be amazing. It's going to be an absolutely mind-blowing, life-changing 3 days, and we would love as many people to be in the room as possible. We spent Monday of this week, we went to an event, a local event that was run by Recovery Devon, which is all about, helping people through mental health issues, and just kind of pointing people back again in the same way as we do to their own innate wisdom. And it was just beautiful to kind of hang out with people doing the same sorts of things as we're doing, and they were very, very supportive about our conference and said they're going to kind of help us, and we would just love some people like those people that we met to be in the room to hear something and hopefully change their lives too. So the conference is the 14th to the 16th of November at the Pier House in Westwood Ho. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact us. The tickets are on sale via our website, Dare2bu.co.uk, and we also have some sponsored tickets. We've had some amazing people step up and put their hand in their pocket to help us out and allow people who maybe couldn't afford to be in the room to be in the room. So yeah, don't let anything be a reason why you're not in that room with us if you want to be.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to mention, actually, we had a quick chat this morning, and we are starting to put into place plans for our next free 5-day challenge.
Ooh, yes.
Which is going to be all about money. And we decided this morning that's going to start on the 28th of October. Is that correct?
Yes,
that
28th
right,
of October for a week, Monday. Yeah, 5 days, 5-day challenge.
Clues in the name. So we are, at the moment, if you might be interested in that, we have got a waiting list that you can sign up to, but we will also be sharing lots of information about how you can register to join in that as soon as possible. So we'll drop a link below this to make sure you can let us know if you're interested in that. We did our very first 5-day challenge a couple of months ago, didn't we? And we had an absolute blast on a really nice topic. And so this is the next topic, money, that we've chosen. So we'd love to have you with us.
Yes, money seems definitely, it's one of the things that we've kind of really noticed. People struggle a lot around money, get into their heads, get into their thinking, get into a lot of fear around money. So we would really, we're going to have a blast for 5 days, 5-day free challenge to kind of see what we can share around that, see what we've seen, see if we can loosen some of that for you and help you in that arena.
Yeah. So they're the couple of things we've got going on. And as always, you can sign up to our mailing list or get in touch with us. There's lots of ways to be in touch. So our living and learning for this week. Ooh, what have I been living and learning this week?
I don't know. What have you been? Have you been alive this week?
Have I been alive? Yeah. Have I learned anything? It's a good chance to have. The thing that's kind of been coming to me a lot over the last week is what we did a little video this morning for something, an online course we're doing. And we termed it the Step Up video, because we've really seen in a few different places, kind of both with ourselves and kind of, as it is often the case when you watch other people, it's so much easier to pick out the things they're doing wrong.
Yeah. I'm perfect, but they do this so much better.
So we kind of, what I've really been seeing over the last week or so is this kind of space where when we step up to something, what kind of happens for us and what changes for us. And we were talking about it this morning in the sense of, let's say you start a new project, that you kind of, the first few weeks or, maybe even the first month, it's really exciting, or a new job or a new relationship or any of those kinds of things. there's a period of time where it feels really exciting. You're enthused by it, you're motivated, you go into it all, you know, guns blazing. And then there often comes that kind of lull phase, doesn't there? Where it's like, no, I'm kind of, this is day-to-day boring now, isn't it? You know, I know this person really well, or this project is kind of, it's not as exciting as it was when it started, or the job, I kind of know the job a little bit better, and those kinds of things. And we often find that we get into that kind of lull space where it's like, no, it's not that exciting anymore. And we kind of go out looking for something new, or we have a new idea, or, you know, those kinds of things. And what we've really seen, and definitely I know this is one of the reasons we talked about what we did on the video this morning, is because it's really been coming up for me, that what actually happens for us when we kind of push beyond that lull, that kind of, I'm slightly bored and I'm just going to go looking for the next new shiny thing. It's absolutely amazing what kind of happens when we keep committing and keep kind of playing out in the world, kind of knowing, I know we say this a lot, kind of taking the responsibility of stepping up whilst knowing we're not responsible. There's just something immeasurable and invaluable that happens when we kind of go to the next stage, when we kind of turn up and keep turning up. And we do 90-day online courses, and the reason we do them for 90 days is for that very reason, that we've seen that after maybe a couple of weeks of being in that course, the kind of initial shine and excitement's worn off, and then it's like, oh, I've got to keep opening the emails, or oh, I probably won't do today, so I'll do tomorrow. And we kind of play that game in our head, don't we, of kind of convincing ourselves we don't have to take part quite so much. And throughout those 90 days, we keep coming back round to committing to and engaging in the course, because it's just incredible what happens when we push through that little lull phase that we go into and really step up our game and step out into life. Really, it's amazing what life brings back. It's kind of beyond words, really.
What's coming to me when you're saying that is that the extraordinary lives in the ordinary. And I think it's very, very easy for us to kind of keep trying to have something extraordinary and not be satisfied with the everyday and ordinary. And yet I think the magnificence and the beauty and the transformation is hidden very much in the ordinary. And it's sometimes when we get so busy just trying to, bored of this now, moving on, and yeah, there's something about staying with something and sticking with something. And
sorry, I was going to sneeze. Excuse me, and it just went away. One of those teasing sneezes.
Teasy sneeze.
Yeah, it is very much that, isn't it? It's that we seem to search for this extraordinary thing as though it's like the Holy Grail, isn't it? We kind of keep going out searching for the Holy Grail. But actually, the Holy Grail for me, the freedom in life, is the ordinary stuff. It's the everyday. It's the, you know, I can look at my partner after 17 years and still fall in love with him. Even, you know, those moments are priceless to me. That you can't kind of put a price on that. You can't. And without doubt, I mean, 17 years since I first met him, without doubt, there's been those moments where it's gone into a bit of a lull, and I'm sure he would say the same. I'm sure he would say the same. But it's definitely that when we kind of keep kind of push through that and notice that what all that's happening there is that we've moved into slightly different thinking, and beyond that, seeing the truth of how stepping up and knowing that life has something amazing out there for us, it changes things. It changes how we turn up. It changes what comes back to us. And for me, that is what this kind of freedom is that we often talk about.
Yeah, and I also kind of, what I see is that we're pointing to something that is beyond the words. That is, you know, we're pointing to somewhere just beyond what we can see. And that also brings that to mind with me. You know, if we stay in there, it's very easy to kind of just see what's on the surface and not kind of go to that deeper place and see something else. So
yeah, and I think the only other little thing I'm going to touch on slightly under my living and learning this week, and I'm not going to say much because it's actually going to come up in our topic, but there's I've been doing over the last couple of weeks a lot of I don't know if people watching this have heard of Byron Katie, but she does an amazing little technique called the work or 4 questions, and something in that process is incredibly powerful. And I know we've had a couple of conversations this week of some stuff that's been going on for us, and I've been kind of working through that process the way that she teaches it, around some stuff that's been in the background for me for a long time that I hadn't even kind of recognized was there. And it's just shifted some incredible stuff for me over the last week. I'm not going to say much more. And when we talk about our topic, loving what is, I'm probably going to mention Byron Katie's name a few times. But that's just been, there's been some incredible insights and shifts and letting go for me in the last week.
So my living and learning this week has been an interesting one, really. It's kind of been... what I see is that it's very, very easy for us to see something, learn something, whatever words you want to put on it, and kind of think, oh yeah, I'm done with that now. And what I've seen is how often things can come back around. We can kind of drop into the same kinds of thinking. We can go into the same patterns that we go, you know, the people that are close to us, the people that we're in relationships with, we tend to have these pattern things that we do, don't we? And it's very, very easy to kind of go back into something that we thought we'd kind of come through, we thought we'd done with, we thought we'd got past that. And I think one of the things that I really truly love about this understanding is how this is a level playing field. However much it looks as if there are people who are higher than us or better than us, or people who are behind us and not as good as us, what I see more and more is that every single human being has thinking, and all of us can be caught up in our thinking. All of us can be thrown by the power and how real and true our thinking looks. And I really truly think that that is a good thing, because I think that as human beings and with, you know, our ego, whatever it is, it's very, very easy to kind of trick us into thinking that we're better than someone else, and we've kind of got a little bit further and we know a little bit more. And I think it is incredibly good to come back down to earth and to kind of see the sameness in all of us. And when we look at other people doing things that we can easily be judgmental about, it's really, really good to be reminded that we can do those things too. And I know a few months ago when we did we had a 2-day workshop, and the mantra of that workshop, I know we've talked about it on here, kind of became, and me too. You know, saying how we all felt the same. And one of the things that I really, really love when I work with people and when we talk to people is, if I do notice what is going on for somebody else, and if I do think, yeah, I can see kind of I've done that, and I can see where I got when I did that, and I can see that there's somewhere else to go. One of the reasons that I'm happy to talk about that kind of thing is because me too. I get caught there too. I know what it feels like to be caught in my thinking. I know what that is like, and I think it is very, very good that we keep being reminded of that. We keep, being shown how human we are, and how we are all the same. There isn't somebody here, and I think that is good in many, many ways for us. The paradox. The other living and learning, I think, for me this week is very much the paradox of what we share, kind of seeing that we are all exactly the same, and yet no two of us are the same. So it's kind of seeing that place where we are exactly the same, whilst respecting that place where none of us are the same. So yeah, I think it's really, really valuable that we get those lessons, that we kind of we get caught in our thinking again. I think that's incredibly valuable.
And what kind of, as you were talking there about the, we might get thinking that comes back, and the same sorts of things that we get caught up in and stuff, it reminds me again how we often say in this conversation, we're not here kind of promising that's it, life's going to be a bed of roses once you've had an insight or once you've seen through a particular thought. These things keep coming back sometimes, and they're personal to us. The stuff that I was just mentioning, we've done kind of some Byron Katie work on in the last week. The things we've been looking at, Deb's stuff is entirely different to my stuff, entirely different on the surface. And, the words that we're using and the way we're kind of saying, well, my stuff is that this person should have done that. And Deb's stuff is this person shouldn't have done that. And the things they should or shouldn't have done appear to be entirely different. And so what comes for us and what kind of is ours, if you like, our trials, if you like, are personal to us. And yet there's something that kind of comes back to me again and again, is that we don't get tested beyond what we can bear. We're not given something that we can't deal with, that we can't cope with.
It can certainly feel like it at times.
Yeah.
And,
it certainly can.
This can be a tough journey at times.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things definitely that I've seen with my living and learning this week is that it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. There's something that and it's not even a gain, it's not even a measure, but there's something that comes to us and comes for us when we see through some of that stuff, when we're brave enough to step up and go, oh yeah, this one that's come back again, this thing that's kind of, yeah, you think I can't be tested beyond what I can bear, but I can't bear this anymore. And yet when we do bear it and we do come through it and we do see through it, there's something beyond that you just can't measure what that is. It's just that's been coming.
I think when we're this side of it, to try and see what comes when we get to the other side, we can't imagine it from this side.
A metaphor's just come to me as you were saying. Cool. Let's try that. So a few years ago when Lucy and I did a skydive, before we were doing the skydive, kind of during the morning as we were on the field and looking at the equipment and talking to the kind of guys that were going to skydive with us, and they were taking us through all the safety stuff, in my head I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to do this, but I can't. I'm not even going to tell you what my stomach was doing because it's not pleasant. But there was this part of me that was kind of like, I want to do this. I really want to do this. But I couldn't at that point have imagined how I was going to feel afterwards. And the feeling once I'd done it, I mean, when we landed on the ground, we've got videos somewhere and we can perhaps show you our faces. Those faces speak for themselves. And some of the words Lucy was coming out with, well, I won't say them on our YouTube live, but there was just, when we landed, I know this was the case for both of us because we were kind of in that space together, and there was something that happened that we couldn't have explained or expected that to happen before we did the skydive. Because beforehand you're kind of there going, no, jumping out of a plane probably isn't, no, that sounds like a ludicrous idea. Why would we do that? And yet in the doing of it and the coming through it, that feeling and that experience that we had is beyond words. And I think that's the same what we're pointing to here.
When we're looking the one side, what was coming to my mind when you were sharing that is the conversations I've had with my daughter about her baby boy, kind of saying she thought, she got pregnant, she was going to have a baby. She thought she kind of knew what it would probably be like to have a baby. And she's kind of like, nothing could have prepared me for what this was, both the absolute amazing bits and the hard bits and all of that kind of thing. And you can't, like, the other side of it, it's just not possible to know that. And from where we're standing, to try and imagine that, it's, it would be like trying to describe to somebody what it's like to eat an apple, someone who's never even seen one. Where would you even start? How do you do that? And I think, this journey is very, very much like this. Each moment when we step into that and see something, it's like the rewards that we get for seeing that, we could not have seen them from where we were standing. And if we try to describe them to someone who hasn't stood in that place, it's incredibly difficult. You're onto a loser, really. You can't. It has to be something personal that we experience for ourselves. So that's the kind of in the living and learning, and however many times, and I think that is why it's really, really good that we have those moments and we have those absolutely smack between the eyes, beautiful moments. And then we remember what it is like to feel what it felt like before we had those moments. And I think that keeps us grounded. I think it keeps us from getting too up ourselves, to be
fair. Yeah, getting too kind of beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
It brings us back to the ground.
Yeah, it does. It brings us back to kind of like, do you know what? This is what it feels like when somebody's struggling. Just remember that, so that when that person is in front of you, you can remember the struggle and know what is on the other side, what is there. And then, you know, when you get back to that, which we inevitably do, it's kind of it's amazing, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And maybe just to eke out a little bit more of the metaphor, I think it does take a leap of faith. It absolutely takes a leap of faith to hear what we're saying and kind of push through into that other side to see what's beyond that, even without knowing what that can actually look like from this side of things. So
yeah, one of the things I've got to do, I'm going to do at some point is that skydive, and that is going to be the biggest leap of faith ever.
I've tried to tell you how good it is on the other side, Deb.
Not hearing it.
Until you take your leap of faith, you won't know, and then you'll look at me and go, "Oh,
if only
it was
you
that."
said this.
Yeah, watch that space, because I think we need to do that fairly soon.
Absolutely. So our question, we have a question.
Oh, so our question this week is it's more of a statement, but I think you'll see kind of the question we're eking out of it. So that it was this: I want to fix something that I can't. And I don't think they just meant, you know, like the brakes on their car or a leak in the roof. I think we're talking about when we're in, and I'm sure we've all been here, a situation where, whether it's with ourselves or with someone else, something looks like it needs a resolution, whether it's a person struggling with their situation, whether it's an argument you're in with a person, more something they want to fix that's more kind of on the emotional side of life. And I'm going to invite you, Deb, to start on this one, because I know this is a topic that's relevant for you this week. So do you want to start us off with that?
This is brilliant. And you know, the amount of times that I have been in this position where there has been somebody, I would say more than anything, that you know, it's kind of like when we're in that place where we want someone else to change. And I think this, you know, somebody, when I want to fix somebody that I know I can't, I think this, and where this question came from, was when somebody, you know, when we are watching somebody else that we really love and we really care for get into trouble in their life, and we have seen something and we know the answer, we know how to help them, we know, you know, what they can do to change that. And it is incredibly difficult sometimes to not wade in, all guns in. And equally, do you know what, even when we're invited,
we've got a message that's come up that says our connection is unstable, but it's dropped away again now, so hopefully you can still hear us. I think we plow on anyway, because this bit should pick up on the recording.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hope so. So just in case, the question is when we want to fix something that we can't fix. And like Bec said, you know, not a leaky roof, because I think most of us, even if I can't do that personally, I know I can ring someone and get that done. But yeah, it is trusting that every single person has their own innate wisdom, has their own you know, they are connected to this intelligence behind life just as much as we are. And I think when we get into those places of really, really, really wanting to fix someone else, the invitation that we, even when you kind of talk about that, when you see that, it feels, you can feel the desperation, you can feel the pull, you can feel that it's out of balance. It doesn't feel soft and gentle and kind. It feels like a need. It feels like a must. It feels like it's that whole place again. When we talk about stepping up and taking responsibility whilst knowing we're not responsible at all, when we get in a place of wanting to fix someone else or fix something on an emotional side like this, that is us moving out of balance and actually believing that we are responsible and we can do that. Now, does that mean we're not kind? Nope. Be kind. Be kind first and foremostly to yourself. and then be very kind to anyone involved here. And I know one of the things that we talked about this morning, we did a video just for our YouTube channel to invite people to come to our conference. And in that video, we talked about something being 180-degree different. And this is where I'm going to maybe go somewhere that is pointing towards that 180-degree difference. It's like, even when someone is unkind to you, be kind. It's easy to be kind to people who are being kind, but the invitation here is to be kind even when someone isn't being kind. And that kindness does start with a kindness to yourself. So being kind to someone else, even when they're being unkind, might be a kindness to yourself. So that's something to kind of sit with and think about.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up what you said about the taking responsibility, because I just that phrase comes back to me so often when we're kind of in a space of wanting to fix something that we appear not to be able to fix, and whether that's something for us personally or we're looking at somebody else and their situation. When we're in a space of I need to fix this, what it appears to me is going on is that we've got this pendulum swing, and I know we talk about these a lot because we like our pendulums, but we've got this pendulum swing where over here we're taking responsibility as if we can fix the whole world, and over here we're taking no responsibility as though we have no impact on the world whatsoever. And down here there's this beautiful space of balance. And what I hear when somebody's saying, I need to fix something that I can't fix, we've gone up here into taking control, trying to take control and change something that's way above our pay grade. And back down here in balance, we'll either know and see that there's nothing that needs fixing, or we'll actually just notice that we're doing something in order to move things forward in whatever way that might be. And I know for me, what I notice about that space of balance is that comes back to me when I come back to remembering that nothing's broken in the first place. When we're stepping out as though there's something that needs to be fixed, we're believing that something is broken. We're going out as though there's something happening that shouldn't be. And for me, it's been really massive. And I know this will start to trip over into our topic a little bit, but I don't think that's a bad thing. When we step out kind of as though something's broken and needs fixing, we're arguing with what is, and what is already happening. And so for me, what I notice is when I'm arguing with what is, when I'm trying to fix something, I'm already too late. It's already happened. It's already out there happening.
Shutting the gate after the horse has bolted.
Exactly that, yeah. So when I come back to noticing that nothing is actually broken in the first place, and whatever is happening, whether it's for me or for someone else, that thing is already happening. So it is what's meant to be happening. And somehow by recognizing that again, I'm either just dropped into a place where I'm perfectly okay with what's happening, because sometimes when we are perfectly okay with what's happening, we drop the whole idea of something needing to be fixed. And other times when we notice that whatever's happening is okay, we just see there's something to be doing. Even if it's okay, there's something we want to do. And that comes for me from a much clearer state of mind, a much more peaceful. There's just something way more peaceful about the actions I take when I'm coming from a space of nothing's broken, nothing actually needs fixing, nothing's happening that shouldn't be happening. And for whatever reason, from that space, I notice that the actions I take or the things that I do are way more helpful to me or whoever's in front of me than when I'm operating from a position way up here where I'm trying to fix something, I'm trying to have the answer to something I don't already have. And it's really, really hurts your head when you try and find the answer to something you don't have the answer to, when you try and fix something that's way out of your pay grade. And so for me, I kind of look for that space where it's like, well, what if this isn't broken? What if this doesn't need fixing? Or what if it's not for me to fix? And actually what comes out of that space is, I can't even, a little bit like we were just saying about the once you go beyond, I can't explain in words what's there, but from that space something comes that I would never, little Becky, human Becky, wouldn't have thought of on her own. But the energy and the mind, this life force that runs us, brings stuff to us in a way that I can't even describe truly, if I'm honest, in words, because it's bigger and more than me.
And what's coming to me around this is when we go into a place of wanting to fix something, if we get quiet and get honest with ourselves, what we begin to see, because it's very, very often it looks as if it's about fixing someone else, you know, my friend, my daughter, I don't know, whoever it is. It's kind of like that there's someone out there who seems as if they're struggling, and you know, it doesn't feel as if the world is being fair, or it doesn't feel whatever. It feels like there's something awry there, and I need it to be different. And that's the crux of it. What is going on here? The desire to fix something is a feeling in us that's kind of saying, I need this to be different. And what that is about, when we begin to actually, if we have the courage to look and see, what we see is that we've accidentally put our own well-being, our own okayness on this other person being okay. You know, if my sister needs to be okay, or my daughter needs to be okay, or my partner needs to be okay, or whatever it is, even though it can seem as if it is coming from a really kind and good place within us, that we want this person to be okay, we take a breath and actually have the courage to look. What we see is that the reason that we want that person to be okay is so that we can be okay, because we don't feel okay when they're not okay. And from that place, then we can begin to bring it back to ourselves. And I know this is another thing that I say a lot, you know, bring it back to you, I bring things back to me. So, okay, so what's going on here for me is that I need this other person to be okay, so I'm okay. And then when I kind of begin to look at that, I see that that isn't true. My okayness is never dependent on somebody else doing, being, having, saying anything, even though it can sometimes really, really, really look as if it is. And that is one of those things, again, to kind of go beyond and to look and to kind of get still and quiet and ask yourself that question, you know, am I okay even here? And this is kind of an ongoing thing. I know very often I talk about getting curious and playing with things, and this is definitely one of those ways. The way I get curious about this is I ask that question, am I okay even here? And it's not, my ego can straight away come back with no, you know, but again, we're pointing to that, stay in the game a little bit longer and look a little bit deeper. And I'm not saying, you know, that the answer might not be no sometimes. Perhaps the answer will be no sometimes, but listen for something deeper coming back. But it's really, really interesting when we do that, when we actually stop and look, you know, where does our desire to fix something come from? And ultimately it comes from us kind of having this idea that it's not okay because we won't be okay unless this thing is different.
Yeah, I really like that. That's just really, really nice reminder of the simplicity of what we point to, which for me pretty much always comes back to what we feel is connected to what we're thinking. There is just nothing we ever feel that is about somebody else. When we're feeling, like Deb says, like, I'm not okay, I don't feel okay and I need to fix that. That feeling is not telling us about the state of the other person. It's not telling us about how they're dealing with their situation. It's only ever telling us the quality of our thinking. And when we've attached ourselves to, in order to feel okay, they must or they should, we're not going to feel great. Our thinking is going to be not great quality. And I just love that reminder of, like, our feelings are just telling us about the quality of our thinking. Like my petrol tank in my car, if it tells me it's low, it's not telling me about going to fill up Deb's car. It's telling me about my car. And we're the same. When our feelings are, I don't feel so good right now, that's not telling us about the other person's situation. It can only ever be pointing to where we are. It's telling us we're out of balance again. We're on this pendulum swing. And I just love that simplicity.
And it can be so compelling that it is to do with someone else. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, we've had that conversation a couple of times this week, haven't we? Even I think that looks like it's someone. No, it can't be. It can't be. And when we come back to that simplicity, it just shifts things again.
It does. And our freedom is always there. In no matter what is going on, our freedom is always there. And if there is someone else that it really looks to you that you want to fix from a place of love, because you want them to be different like that, get curious about this and kind of look to your own grounding, because the biggest gift you can give to someone else you love is your own grounding. And however much that doesn't look like it's enough, however much it doesn't look like, how can that possibly be enough? This is another one of those places. And again, I've seen this week too, when we go there and when we sort of the biggest gift I can give is my okayness, and just fall back into that place of trusting our own inner wisdom and trusting our own inner guidance. It's amazing what can happen from that place. Things that, 1 minute a situation can look like it's never going to resolve, as if it's never going to be okay. And it can turn around in as quickly as a thought can change. And it's mind-blowing when it does that. And that's what's available to us. And that happens the more that we get into our own grounding. That's when that happens. And then the other side of that coin about wanting to fix something that I can't might be when it's somebody else who maybe is doing something, is in a bullying role or something like that. Somebody, we want to fix something that looks as if it's to do with somebody else, and they're, picking on us or not being nice or that kind of thing. And believe it or not, I'm going to point you in the same direction again. Begin to see that we need that person to do something different so that we can be okay. And the biggest gift we can give ourselves, and believe it or not, the person who's not being nice to us, is again our own grounding, our own seeing that us being okay is not connected to what other people are doing. And seeing that it's magical when we begin to see that.
It's entirely counterintuitive, and yet
Absolutely.
we've seen it work time and again. So, as we've already touched a little bit on this, our topic is loving what is. And this actually came, I can't remember what we put out, but we put something out on Facebook, and I don't even think it was necessarily to do with this, but someone commented on it and said they'd love to know a little bit about how, assuming that we do, how it is that we love what is. And interestingly, when that question came through, I'd actually been reading Byron Katie's book, and it was Byron Katie, I think, that probably coined the phrase loving what is. And certainly one of her books is called that. It's not actually the book I'm reading at the moment, but everything pretty much that she points to is the same thing, really. She just does it under different words. Who knew?
So just in case you're watching this and you don't know, Byron Katie is a lady who probably in the 70s or something had a huge awakening. Basically, she was in the depths of depression. She was in a terrible state, and in a second all her thinking dropped away. She had one of the biggest awakening moments in the Western world that's documented, I think. And she has documented what happened to her and what changed for her, and it was huge. It was just absolutely huge. And her, what she saw from this, what she came away from, was 4 questions that she asks. And it's very similar to the kind of am I okay even here. It's the same sort of, it's the same ilk. And one of her books, and like you say, one of the phrases that she coined, what she saw was that when she believed her thinking, she suffered. When she didn't believe her thinking, she didn't. When she loved what was true, she was perfectly okay. And when she argued with it, she wasn't. And so she very much talks about loving what is. And sometimes what is can look incredibly unlovable.
Yeah.
It can be a tall order.
It certainly can. And it's very much, I don't think there's a kind of 10 steps to loving what is. It doesn't look to me like that's how this works. But I think for me, what I've done, if you like, if I kind of listed out my steps, if you wanted, it would simply be to keep looking in this direction, like we've just been talking about.
Very
keep
much so.
kind of questioning things, looking at things, looking within, seeing for yourself how is it possible to love what is? Is that possible for you? Because that's kind of what I've done. And certainly, I mean, it's not just Byron Katie's work that I've kind of found helpful in this arena. I know the conversations we have, I know the way the 3 principles talk about this, and a number of other books and videos and all sorts that I've kind of immersed myself in. There's just this continual invitation to see something in a different way, to see it that maybe it's not what it looks like, maybe don't take this at face value, and to see if it's possible to love what is. Is it possible in any given moment to love what's happening? And what interestingly, I was reading Byron Katie's book. I read a chapter every morning. It's I think one of her other books called 1,000 Names for Joy. And the chapter I read this morning, she was talking about living in her house. She gets ants in her house sometimes. And she was talking about how there was a day where she was sitting on her settee, and there was a couple of ants just kind of crawling over her arm. And so when she sees her daughter next, she says, "Oh, will you get me kind of there's a little ant." I think this must be an American thing, because I'm not sure if we have these. But there's something called an ant house or an ant hotel, and there's poison in it. And so the ants
Nice
kind
hotel.
of go in. Yeah, quite. And the ants kind of go in, and they munch on the stuff, and they get poisoned, and they take it back to the nest, and it kind of poisons the rest of the ants. And this was I think a common way for ants to be gotten rid of. And so she'd asked her daughter to get this for her, and then she noticed the next day the same thing happened. The ants were kind of back, and she just literally has a really funny moment of, oh, it turns out the ants are meant to poison me. And she was just in the whole way through this story, she's just in this space of being perfectly okay with what is. There's no argument from her. There's no kind of, oh, the ants shouldn't be crawling over me. Oh, the ants should have died when they went in the ant hotel that I bought for that purpose. There's just, what is happening is what's happening. And for me, I've really seen that the more I kind of absorb some of that, the more I notice that kind of that idea and that exploration kind of comes out when stuff's happening for me. And it hasn't been ants, fortunately. I don't think we have those in our house. But when something's happening, I just notice that I kind of explore, oh, what if I could be okay with what's happening? What if there's a place here? And maybe I can't be in that moment, because I'm perfectly okay with sometimes I can't be, and no, I don't want that, whatever it is, to be happening. And other times I'm like, oh yeah, I can be, actually. I can be okay with what's happening. And I just keep exploring that, and I just keep kind of playing with it when it occurs to me to do that. And it doesn't always, it's not in every single moment. There's definitely times when I'm like, nope, I'm absolutely not loving what is right now. And other times I'm just exploring it and getting curious as to whether that's possible to love what is happening right now. And what I think one of the things I think she talks about is arguing with reality is the very definition of insanity. And kind of what I pointed to earlier when we were talking about the question, when we're going out as though we can fix something that's already happening, that's insane. It's already happening. We can't make it unhappen. And so the loving what is, for me, is that place where we just notice what's happening and we don't put up an argument about it. And I know that can seem very passive. And to me, what we're talking about here isn't that. It isn't the passive, I don't care what happens. It's a genuine knowing that what is happening is perfectly okay.
When you're talking about kind of getting curious with that, it's when Byron Katie says, I notice when I believe my thinking, I suffer. And when I don't believe my thinking, I don't suffer. I think one of the first things to play around is kind of noticing that just for yourself and other people. Because very often the people that irritate and annoy us maybe don't irritate and annoy someone else. And it's kind of like you can begin to see that if if I have the thought somebody is really irritating and annoying, and I believe that thought to be true, I'm suffering. I'm in annoyance. I'm not in a great place. If I see someone else who is around that same person who isn't having that thinking or isn't having that thought, I notice their experience is different to mine. So we kind of get to a place where we see that when we are okay with however that person is, then we don't suffer. So I think one of the first things to see is to kind of to see the truth in that statement and notice it's not necessarily about that I'm going to go all out to stop suffering, but just notice what it is when I'm suffering. It's like, if I have the thought, I haven't got enough money, I suffer. If I have the thought, I've said the wrong thing here, I look stupid on this video, I suffer. If I have a thought and believe that thought to be true, if I have a thought that isn't a helpful, loving, beautiful thought, and I believe it to be true, I suffer. And even if it can kind of look like, no, that wasn't a thought, that was a truth, but just kind of go with the thing. Notice if it's in your head, if your head is kind of saying something to you and it looks real and true to you, notice how that is the start of your suffering. That's where suffering comes from. No thought, no suffering. When we have that thought, we suffer. And kind of just getting curious about that. And then the playing around with it is, if we have the, I don't know, someone's coming to visit. I don't want them to visit. I don't want them to visit, and they're going to come and visit. And it's like seeing, well, although everything in me is kind of saying I don't want them to visit, and that is causing me suffering and not feeling great, and just getting curious, well, what happens if I don't believe that thought? What happens if I don't believe the thought that I don't like that person and I don't want them in my house? What happens? And it's just kind of getting curious and seeing, and you kind of begin to see, well, if I didn't think that about that person, I wouldn't suffer. I'd be perfectly okay. And then it's not kind of saying, so that's it, don't ever think that about somebody else again. It's just taking you that far. It's just saying, see what the cause of your suffering is. That you have the thought that I don't like that person, I don't want them in my house. That's the cause of your suffering. It's not them being in your house, because if you kind of stop and breathe and see that there is a place I could be okay, then we begin to see it's the thought believed that causes the suffering, not the fact that the person is there. And then, it's not saying, so that's it really, that's as far as we go with it. And then see what happens as your mind begins to open to that.
And that's the bit, I think, where it gets personal to you, because I think that first bit you pointed to is it's impersonal and it's true for everybody, that as you explore this in whatever way makes sense to you, something shifts when you start to see that it is possible to be okay with what is. It is possible to notice that it's the thoughts that cause the discomfort and the thoughts that take away your kind of peace of mind. And then what becomes personal to you is what changes from there. Because what might change from there is you might actually love having that person stay and you invite them all the time. Or what might change from there is that you just accept that they are there and you don't feel the need to invite them again if you don't want to. And there's just a myriad of options that come out from there, and they'll be personal to you. Because that's what I've really noticed about this kind of conversation is we kind of share what we've just shared, and then somebody will come back at some point and say, oh, so you said that, and then what happened for me was this, and we're blown away by what happens for people personally, because it's entirely different on a personal level to what happens when we explore. Because the outcomes of these kinds of things, the kind of what shifts and what transforms for you is always going to be personal to your journey, and it will be or could be entirely different to what's happened for us when we've played around and explored this. So it's kind of not a how to love what is, but more of a invitation to see if it's possible to love what is. And I sometimes say start small because we can often go, oh, okay, then what I'm going to do is test out this theory. I'm going to explore what you've talked about on the biggest problem I've got in my whole world. Maybe start small. Maybe start with something a little bit like Byron Katie talked about, something fairly inconsequential like ants or whatever your small thing might be, because it definitely, we get kind of more and more used to exploring in this way, and things change, and we almost form a habit of exploring and asking the question and looking to see if we're okay here or if we can love what is here.
I think, yeah, it kind of wakes something up in you, and it tends to be that's your go-to place rather than, oh, this is bad, I don't like this. It changes your go-to place within. And it definitely is, it's an ongoing exploration. I don't think it's kind of, there will be something that will, you can be loving what is and loving what is and loving what is, and suddenly something that is just will not feel lovable. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. This isn't, we started this by sort of saying, with my living and learning this week, one of the things I love is that we're all the same, and we trip up on this journey and we forget and we go back, and that's okay too. One of the things that I love, one of the things that I love is that happens to us. When we get it, it's very, very easy to have that happen and then kind of go into the, I'm useless, I can't do this. And that's a thought belief that we suffer when we believe that too. And if we, what happens if I don't believe the thought, I'm useless and I shouldn't trip up and I should never believe my thinking again? I'm free. It's going to be difficult sometimes. This isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. This isn't the easiest journey to take, but it is the most rewarding if you have the courage to stick with it and continue this journey.
Yeah, I think the rewards far exceed a skydive. Yeah. Although a skydive is worth doing. And I actually, interestingly, I didn't even think about this when I said those words just then, but actually the skydive for me was one of those places where I dropped into one of the most peaceful, loving what is spaces I think I've ever been in this journey so far. And I know, like, during the day when we were kind of doing the skydive, Lucy and I had quite a few kind of conversations as the morning went on, and we were a bit nervous, we were a bit this, we were a bit that. And then there came a point for me where I noticed that's what I was doing. I was kind of talking myself into being nervous. I was talking myself into, well, what if this goes wrong? Or what if I don't do this bit right? Or, all those things we do. And then somewhere beyond that, I suddenly saw this space of, I can just be okay. And I actually had a real giggle moment because I was like, oh, even if I break my legs when I land, that's okay too. And it was that funny that was going on in my head. It was literally that ridiculous that was happening in my head, that was kind of going, oh yeah, even if I break my legs or even worse than that, I can be okay in that space. I can love what is, 2 broken legs and all. And I really genuinely saw that beyond the kind of funny thinking I was having, that actually no matter what happened with the skydive, I could be okay with that. And there was a space where I could love whatever was happening. And I really dropped into this incredibly peaceful space and had this most amazing experience of the skydive. And I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest and most amazing experiences of that kind of loving what is space bubbling up out of me. And it wasn't even intentional from that point of view. It was just something that happened, having been exploring this for quite some time by then, that it just kind of bubbled up in me. Oh, even if kind of some of the worst things happen, even there's a place where I can be okay.
And I think that to me is what is available. I can feel that sitting here now next to you with some of the stuff that has been going on for me this week. I can feel that total peaceful, okay place bubbling up in me now around that. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, am I okay even here? Absolutely, yes, I am. And it's so ordinary, it's so everyday, it's so beautiful, and it is so available to all of us even when our feet are firmly on the floor, we're not in an airplane, and we're not skydiving. You don't have to do that to get this feeling. It's available to us in the most normal and ordinary of things that go on day to day with all of us. So, yeah, keep up the good work.
Yeah,
keep playing, keep getting curious and exploring.
So, tomorrow is World Mental Health Day, and their theme this year is suicide prevention, which is entirely coincidental because we had a couple of conversations in the last few weeks about broaching the topic of suicide and the principles. So that's actually our theme next week, which then turned out to fit extremely well when I was looking at World Mental Health Day today. So it's clearly not just us that have seen the kind of rise and are kind of concerned about why it is that suicide actually is on the rise, and what it is that we can kind of do to, because that it doesn't have to be the answer.
No.
So our theme next week is our topic next week is suicide and the principles.
Yeah, so that's going to be a really, really interesting conversation, and there's been a lot coming up for me around that. So that was a topic that I particularly wanted to look at and talk about. So I'm very much looking forward to that next week. And then our question, we have had a question from somebody: why am I always so unlucky? So this came in from someone who seems to be in the run of
a run of bad luck at the moment.
A lot of bad luck. So we're going to be looking at that as well. That's going to be our question next week.
Yes. And as always, if there's anything we've talked about tonight that you have other questions on, there's lots of ways to contact us. You can comment on this video, you can email us, you can catch up with us on Facebook. We have a mailing list. We're pretty visible and pretty available. We're not shy.
No, we don't hide.
Plenty of ways to be in touch if there's questions and stuff you've got. And if this has brought something up for you and you do want to kind of deep dive and work a little closer with us on this kind of thing, we have some paid programs as well that you can find out about on our website, or again contacting us.
So we always love to hear from people. So if there's anything coming up, please do get in touch. And if you have any subjects that you would like us to cover in these, when we do this every week, if there's a question you have or something you would particularly like us to talk about, then please get in touch and let us know.
Thank you very much for joining us,
and hopefully we will catch up with you and see you somewhere this week. Take care. Bye for now.